Goff here, your humble host of the Agency Success GPS podcast. I am honored to have a special guest on today. His name is Chris Mclean. He is out of Melbourne, Australia, and he has a very similar journey than I do. We both started our agencies in the early 2000s, somewhere around 2003. For me, 2003. For him, I think it was late 2002, early 2003. We both excelled. We both wound up building up large agencies, and he's also getting into the coaching world. And he has a tendency to focus on peak performance, on how the agency owners and mindsets of those owners can dictate everything that happens to you in your agency. It's a great episode. Wonderful guy. Hope you enjoy it. Hey, Lee Goff here with Agency Success GPS podcast. I am excited and honored to have a young man on here called Chris Mclean, and he is an up-and-coming agency coach. He started his agency, I think even a little before I did, in 2002, and then just scaled it up into a nice success story. But as we all know, he can do a better job explaining it than I can. So Chris, welcome to the show, and how are you doing today?
Thank you, Lee. Yeah, pleasure to be here, and yeah, it's good to jump on shows like this first thing in the morning and get the day going. So thanks for having me here.
You're welcome. So tell us about your story. How did you end up becoming a coach? You were telling me a little bit offline about how, university, your best mate and all that. So.
Yep. Yeah, so I sort of always had a flair for creativity. I did graphic design and stuff like that during high school. So I always thought I would go into something creative, whatever that meant at the time. Sort of got into university and studied business, advertising, marketing. So I sort of channeled down that I wanted to go work for probably one of the big agencies, maybe on the creative side as a CD, as a creative director, as something on that side of things. Did really well with the stuff in university, particularly on the copywriting and the ad campaigns. So really enjoyed that side of things. But during that process, I actually kind of worked in with one of the big agencies here in Melbourne. And I kind of got a taste and a feel of what big agency life sort of felt like, and decided that wasn't what I wanted to do. And sort of got to the end of having studied all this stuff and went, oh, crap, what am I going to do now? And sort of after a bit of a pause, I eventually just ended up launching my own agency with my best mate at the time. And neither of us sort of had any skill set really, other than having studied the creativity side. In terms of the tools, he'd studied a bit of sort of computer science and had built some web and done a bit of Flash animation and that kind of stuff. But for myself, really, we just launched into it. It was sort of multimedia at the time. It was essentially digital, but 2002, digital wasn't really a coined term yet. So we sort of launched as multimedia. And that was, things like Flash animation, Flash web was quite big at the time.
Yeah.
Sort of those few years.
Oh, I remember entire websites being built in Flash. That would be treasonous. Yeah. That's treasonous now, right? But that was pretty commonplace. Yeah, that's pretty commonplace back in the day.
Yeah. So I had these amazing, fully animated, fully immersive, interactive sort of Flash websites. So we did a lot of that kind of work. As I was saying, sort of hand coding tables in Macromedia Dreamweaver back in the day, and everything looks beautiful, and then you stick it on Internet Explorer and it would be a pixel off everywhere.
Oh God, IE5 or below. If you've never had to deal with IE5 or I think 5.5 or below, you just don't know. You don't know the pain. You just don't.
Yeah. Everything just works seamlessly today, and you've got beautiful tools like Wix and WordPress that just make everything seamless. But back then you're literally hand coding tables, and it was a bit of a nightmare. But that
one-offs, everything, and it was just a nightmare. And you try to get the show on one screen, it wouldn't. It was just a nightmare. So anyway, your story, I think resonates with the majority of agency owners out there. My story was a little bit backwards, which is not uncommon in my life, but, I'm a business guy, right? I went to college for business. My father was an entrepreneur. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. And I just saw the digital arena as being a huge opportunity to get out there and kind of really move the needle. Actually, right over my shoulder right here, this painting right here, my mom painted that. Well, she actually painted both of those, but this one was for Get You Wired, my agency, and this one is for my coaching business right here. And over here, there's a little purse string between the two, and it's to bridge the gap between big business and small business. So I went into it with business intent. So I had a lot of the business skill sets already, but didn't have any of the digital creative.
Yeah.
You're coming at it more from the creative digital or the creative side and leaning in how to figure out the business side of things.
Yeah.
Have you found that to be, I underestimated how many people started their business that way because again, I was exactly opposite of that. We have a tendency to kind of associate our own experiences to other people, right? But
Yeah.
what when in your journey of trying to figure out what business skills do you need to get first, right? Like first and then second, what advice would you give somebody on that? Because it's as soon as you get into this industry, you realize that being creative or being a great coder, it'll get you some clients. It'll let you be a glorified freelancer. You can do all right. But if you want to build a business, you better start reading some Jim Collins or some, you better start reading some business books, right? So what resources did you go to start learning the business side of running an agency?
Really good question. I mean, my university degree, I had sort of a side in, so the advertising marketing was one aspect. I did a bit of management and business and comms sort of on the other side. So I had I was a little bit versed at least in business fundamentals, management principles, that sort of thing. So I had a little bit of it, but reading the textbooks and doing a university course and getting into the weeds of, oh, holy shit, I've got to hold this thing up now and I've got to make this a business and not just a hobby, and I've got to pay the bills. And there's a whole different skill set. And you bang on, a lot of us come into agency world from, I'm the coder, I'm the creative, I'm the artist, I've got the craft. And now I've got to turn this from a hobby into a business. I've got to learn a whole other skill set.
It is, yeah, and it's hard, man. It's tough. It's tough, And I know when I was building my agency, I'm sure we started them about the same time. Dude, there were no such thing. Dude, it wasn't even digital agencies didn't even exist. We were just like we were the web world. We were like that weird web thing over there that nobody wants to deal with.
Yeah.
Now we were like the Reddit stepchild. Now we're commonplace. You don't run a business, especially after COVID. Everybody is, the people who ignored digital before COVID really got caught with their pants down. So, and again, I just find that being a hurdle that a lot of up and coming agency owners and what I kind of deem freelancer or successful freelancers, they have a very, very, very difficult time turning that corner. They very much hold on to their creativity or their coding. And I put coding in a creative category as well. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's not all black and white. It's not ones. I mean, it is ones and zeros, but it definitely, you better have
very creative. Yeah.
Very, very creative on how you go about putting that together. And again, mine, it was almost instinctual because I was raised around small business. In other words, I knew the importance of getting on that phone with my prospects first before anybody else got on the phone with them. I knew that following up with them 7 to 9 times is going to win about half the deals. Okay. Just, these are things that I just grew up knowing, and I took them for granted. I assumed everyone else out there knew them. And when I got off into the coaching space, I realized, crap, man, this is just some of the basic building blocks here. Right. And to get to that peak performance, which is what we're going to talk about here in a second. This is what we're going to talk about today, how to be a peak performer. Sometimes just getting them out of the gate can be a little bit hard. I have found that to be pretty true in a lot of cases. So they can't get out of the gate.
Yeah, it's getting those fundamentals right. One of the big things that comes up is just baseline financial IQ. That was something for me that I sort of had to develop, because numbers and maths was never my bag. It was never my thing, but suddenly you've got this thing, you've got to really understand a financial spreadsheet. You've got to understand a balance sheet. You've got to go, well, this is going out and this is coming in. And then next month, we don't really know. So how are we going to balance? You got to have some baseline financial intelligence just to understand that stuff, to make business decisions on, can I hire? Can I outsource? Are we just going to have to grind it out this month?
Yeah. Can I eat dinner?
Exactly.
I tell you what, cash flow is a tricky deal, and a lot of people try to make. Excuse me. A lot of people try to make cash flow out to be a black and white thing, but I've always found it to be. It's got a lot of pollen going on there. I found cash flow to be almost an instinctual thing, man. You got to be able to forecast it. kind of see where it's going at the early stages. Now, later on,
Yeah.
you can definitely become a math.
Once you get a feel for it.
Well, once you have the money, again, cash flow is not a big deal when you
Yeah.
got $500,000 in the bank.
Yeah, when you're self-funding and bootstrapping and you're
Yeah,
not sure what's coming in next month, and
when you're self-funding and you only got $10,000 a month in revenue coming in, and you need 5 of that for you and your family, and you got to pay 6 of it out to contractors, you got a problem.
Yeah.
And just that basic knowing how to hold it here and pull back on cost over here and kind of do this and what's the bang for the buck and all that fun stuff. Anyway, I'm going down the rabbit hole. Let's pull it back over to the peak performance, okay?
Yeah.
This is why Chris is on the show. He reached out to me like, golly, now 3 weeks, a month ago, and that's my fault, by the way, for taking forever to get over here. But what Chris does, and I'm going to ask you to actually translate this because I don't transmute chaos. That's a cool word. I'm going to Chris.
Borrow that one.
What's that?
So you like that word? It's a good one.
I do. Chris is a peak performance and transformation coach who helps agency owners transmute chaos into control and frenzy into flow. Through intentional mindset, flow hacking, and a scientifically backed agency performance system. Explain what that means.
Yeah, it sounds cool, but
it sounds cool.
Yeah. So that's really great intro. It sounds really cool, but it's actually also very, very effective. So let me sort of explain, I guess, take you through some of those, what that actually means. So transmutation sort of comes from this alchemy back in the day, right? So the sort of foundations of psychology and science. So alchemy is the ability to turn copper into gold, right? To transmute
into gold, iron into gold,
something into something else. And that's really the idea of transformation, right? And that's the end result that we like to get for people, is not just to take somebody to change, right? Because change, I feel, is it can go backwards, right? I can change into something, but I can also change back from that. What we ideally want is transformation, like a butterfly, right? Once the caterpillar becomes a butterfly, it transforms. It's not going back to a caterpillar. So transformation, sort of it's change that's permanent. So really, that's where we want to get people to. We want to take them to whatever that goal is for them. You want to get them to that place, and then have it be irreversible. That's a level up, and then that's the new baseline, and then we transform again and we go up. So that's sort of that idea of transmutation. We want to take people from whatever they're experiencing, level them up to something new that sticks, rather than just have change that's kind of fleeting and goes back and forward.
You try to get it to become a habit, not a hobby. So.
Exactly. So we want to bake in those systems, right? We want those redundancies, the systems, the habits, the kind of nitty gritty daily stuff that feels really unsexy. But when you do it every day and you get that emergent property of peak performance, of dropping into flow states, getting into higher states of consciousness, getting your most important work done in those types of states, that's pretty sexy. So that's sort of that transformation. We want to take you from, as I say, sort of chaos into control. A lot of agency owners, life is kind of chaotic, right? We show up at work, we drop into the office, and then the day just starts, and the day kind of runs us. And we're firefighting, we're at the will of our clients. The client calls, we're on that call, okay, I'll fix that, and then I've got to go fix this. And you get through a day, you get through a week, you get through a month, and you go, actually, I haven't done anything to grow my business. And that's where you get to this idea of you're sort of living through this daily chaos, where I want to work on the business, but I'm too busy working in it to do that. And I don't have the time. I'm sure you've probably heard that a lot in your coaching practice. I just don't have the time to work on my business. So it's about turning that chaos into being much more in control, and having that confidence of, I know, rather than showing up to my day and the day running me, I've got the systems and the protocols and the practices and the habits where I can show up and I determine what my day looks like.
Yeah, cool, man. Sounds almost like an accountability rhythm is what it sounds like. And so one of the most powerful tools I ever implemented at my agency was a simple accountability rhythm. I mean, it's a game changer whenever you get that in place. So how do you define, peak performance, and why does it matter to agency owners?
So peak performance is really operating in a state where you perform your best. So you're doing your best work, but you're also really enjoying it, right? You feel your best while you're doing it. So a lot of agency owners, as you say, that there can be this tension between I've got to learn all this business stuff, I've got to do this stuff, I've got to grow this business, I've got to learn all this stuff, I've got finances, I've got all this other. It's quite a complex beast to actually be an agency owner
Oh, yeah.
whilst maintaining creativity, right, and being inspired and churning out amazing campaigns and doing all of this work and supporting clients. There's a lot that goes into being an agency owner, and that can feel really chaotic. So ideally want to get people out of that and have them actually find the fun again, right? Find the enjoyment, actually enjoy what you're doing, even if that is the minutia, even if that is filling out data in a spreadsheet, doing your finances, doing your accounts. If you can do that work in a peak performance state, so what we call a flow state, which Michael Jordan hitting the three on the buzzer, that's that idea of it. That's the peak performance state. That's just you're in the zone, in the hole, in the green room, right? You're just absolutely on. Everything else falls away. I'm in that moment. If we can bring that type of consciousness to whatever work we're doing, not only do we enjoy it more because it's a what we call an autotelic experience when you get into flow. It's the experience itself is so enjoyable that I want to do it again. And that has a lot to do with the neurochemistry of flow states and peak performance, where we literally get the 5 most exciting pain relief, pleasure chemicals in the brain and in the body and through the nervous system when we access these states. So if we can do our accounts, do our work, do our campaign development, run our Facebook ads, do the stuff in our business in these types of states more often, it feels great. And then we actually get way more productive. So for every hour that we're working, every unit of input that we're using, we can actually get much more output, much more efficiency and effectiveness off the back once we're in these states, because when you're in a flow state, everything else falls away and you're just 100% focused on that single thing that you're doing.
And is there a process or something when you get in the flow state? I mean, I have to admit, I'll just get in the zone. You know what I mean? Like, just get in the zone, right? And what got me into my peak performance state is actually whenever I got the hell out of my own way and allowed other people to come in and help and realize it wasn't all to me. And then all of a sudden I realized that, you know what, me being in the just trying to be a control freak, basically, okay, holding me back from my peak performance. Have you found that?
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about, so flow does work in what we call a flow cycle. So it's a 4-stage cycle that to actually drop into a flow state, you need to push through this 4-stage cycle. But it also, I was talking about that. There's also what we call flow triggers. So flow is triggered by certain conditions, sort of internal or external triggers. And one of the big ones, which is exactly what you just touched on, is what we call there's a reduction in cognitive load. So and that's that focus and attention. So when you're trying to do everything and you're trying to think about everything, you're trying to manage everything and you're multitasking, you're doing everything at once, cognition your system's overloaded. If you can reduce that cognitive load, right, by delegating, by deferring, by deleting, by getting very, very clear on what I actually need to do right now to move the business forward, have very, very clear goals, reduce that cognitive load down and get hyper focused on 1 or 2 things, particularly just one thing in the moment, drive that attention, get really focused. Flow follows focus. So that's probably what you felt there when you kind of cleared off that cognitive load. You knew that stuff was getting done and you could focus on the stuff you needed to do or that you wanted to do to drive your business. That was reducing that load. And that's one way to start to trigger and become more prone to dropping into peak performance states.
What I found is that I was given, say I'm tackling 5 things at one time and I'm giving it my 20%. And I will say entrepreneurs 20% is probably better than most people's 70 or 80%. Because we gotta be, if not, we die, right? Business wise and stuff. And so what happened is that whenever I actually gave it off, just delegated to someone, they put 100% into it. And so by default, a lot of us think we can multitask, but it's actually physically impossible for your brain to multitask. So you are splitting energies when you're handling 5 at one time. And so by default, when you split those energies, you're not doing it as well as someone else could at 100%. And so,
Yeah.
just a simple act of delegating would allow that task to go way through the roof. And as far as performance, but it would also free my brain up, like you were saying.
Yeah.
I didn't think the brain could get full until I was, I don't know, 7 or 8 years into building my business. It definitely can get full. It'll.
Yeah.
Your brain is like, ooh, you're almost like fried. You're like, oh, I'm like a zombie. You're literally fried.
Yeah.
And so that is
Yeah.
that's really really cool. So, and if there's one thing you'd advise anybody out there to do, like for example, me, I'm gonna tell you right now, what's called that accountability rhythm. To be able to kind of get that into place, because see, a lot of people don't realize they can use an accountability rhythm to hold their entire staff, leadership, everybody accountable. That's the name accountability rhythm. That's one of the things that you can do. I mean, you can take a couple of hours to set that up. There's a process you got to follow. You got to get your agenda, certain ways you got to go about doing it. But that one single thing can make a huge impact. What's one thing that you would recommend to agencies out there that can get them started down the path of experiencing peak performance?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, peak performance sort of over the long term is doing a whole bunch of things religiously every day, and it's this emerging property of just doing the right stuff every day, and you get that compound interest of growth. But if I had to pick sort of one thing, and the biggest thing you can do to kind of get that, so flow follows focus, and focus really is elongated attention. So if we can elongate our attention long enough and hold our attention and be intentional about sticking with something and staying with it and kind of pushing through a bit of that, we might call the struggle phase. So if we feel a bit, oh, this is a bit itchy now, you get that word, sort of dopamine itchiness. I'm ready to just switch out of this task and get into my phone or just do something or get up. If we can learn to sort of get that grittiness, that diligence skill to push through that struggle a little bit. And a lot of that comes down to just distraction management. That is probably the biggest thing you can do to just destroy steady state peers.
That same thing on the accountability rhythm. The reason you have the accountability rhythm is you get everything done in that 30 minutes, and they better not interrupt you again for the rest of the day. That's the point. That's the point. Oh, amen. We're saying about the same thing. That's organize your day and don't let the outside interruptions ruin your day or your production for that day.
Yeah. So you want to calendarize everything, but these things are a nightmare.
Yes, they are.
These are an absolute nightmare. I mean, as you can see, I've got raise to wake off, and no background, and it's all pretty. All my notifications are off. So I mean, the average person out there, the average performer, over an average 8 to 10 hour day, actually only gets about 2 hours of work done, of actual deep, dedicated work, and it's because most people are distracted about 35 times a day, I think, somewhere around that. And
I would say, I think it's probably a little more. It depends, the average person. I think the entrepreneur, I'd venture to say that.
Probably even more. Yeah. So the average person.
I'm guessing, I don't have any science to back that up, but I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I know in my world, it was, God, I'd be interrupted 4, 5, 6 times an hour at least.
Yeah.
At minimum, you know what I mean? And until I figured out that's the problem. That's the problem. I can't focus on it. I can't do anything. Everybody's right here, right? And it's my fault. I backed myself in the corner. I was an open door CEO. You know what I mean? Like, I want everybody, janitor to my eventually I retired as a CEO, became the board of directors, and I oversaw my C-level team from a KPI standpoint, which I'm sure you're familiar with. But, until I learned the value of just, focusing and not having all those interruptions come in all the time, it'll drain you, man. It will absolutely suck the life out of you. And that's how you go the opposite direction of peak performance, is allowing that. You know what I mean? So
that's overwhelm, that's burnout, that's stress. So I mean,
that's when you start to make those stupid mistakes too, by the way. So
because you're just overloaded. The working memory is just too taxing. You're trying to do everything consciously, and that working memory is actually very, very limited compared to the subconscious mind. So we, as much as we can, we kind of want to delegate stuff back to the unconscious when we're trying to sit and figure stuff out. And that is that you're just sitting trying to work it, think it, not taking breaks, not kind of just leveraging your biology, where we work through these peaks and flows and ebbs and flows of energy throughout the day. We want to ride that wave. And that's, again, we want to get the most out of our performance. But when we start to drop off, we want to go with that a bit, right? We want to take a break. We want to go for a walk. We want to take a breath, sit and do some breath work. We want to do something.
Well, your body's telling you that.
Energy's declining.
Yeah, I mean, it's speaking to you. Listen to it. And I learned this one. I had a damn heart attack, and I did not listen to my body. So I learned that one.
Yeah, well,
the very hard way, right? I'm very lucky to be here, which is why I'm hell bent on making agency owners' lives easier. It does not have to be as hard as it was when Chris and I were building our agency. There was no roadmap whenever I was building it. It was very much the Wild West. Now it's pretty structured. I mean, you can get out there and do it up. So I used to always had a saying with my leadership thing. Actually, my daughter too. I coach my daughter with this too. I'm like, baby, that's my daughter, you know, I'm like, not you. You know, I'm like, if you are blessed enough to be able to spend half your day doing something you just absolutely cherish. Okay, me, I love being on the phone and helping small business owners. It's what I miss. It's my calling. It's what I do. A lot of other coaches can't stand that. They just want to do workshops and sell online courses. They don't care about it. They want to be hands off. Me, I love being in the trenches with them. It really is what makes me tick, you know, as a human being, right? So I always tell my daughter that if half the day I'm dealing with crap I can't stand to get to the half that I love, you need to consider yourself pretty damn lucky, blessed actually. That's like probably the best it's ever going to get, by the way. Okay, because most people have a job that at 99% sucks. Okay, the only time it doesn't suck is at 4:59 on Friday when they're making plans with their friends to go get a beer. Okay, and that's when it's job's kind of fun. It's not even really the job. But you understand, I mean, most people are in a shit job. Let's just call it what it is. So if you got to go, you know, cut the grass so it looks good for when you have a party, right? Or it can be any little thing. You've got to clean the kitchen. Friends are coming over. Have a good time with your friends. Got to clean the kitchen so you can have a good time with your friends. So you got to put in the time to get the freedom. If you don't put in the time, you're not going to get the freedom. And so I always tell you, if you're doing half the crap you can't stand to do, but that half supports you in doing the half you love to do. And that formula has worked out very well for my leadership team. I hope it works out well for my daughter. That's yet to be determined. We'll see how that one turns out. But I felt like I know, right, very much a work in progress. But I always tell that to my daughter. I tell that to my coaching students like that. Do you find that is true? Is that true in your world? Does that hold true in your world?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, freedom comes from diligence, right? You can't uncouple those two things.
I don't freedom without putting in the hard work. Let's let that be known.
Yeah.
And I hear that a lot. Oh, no, I just want all white label. I just want to sell it and they do all the work. I don't have to deal with anybody. I'm like, man, that's not how this works. Okay, I'm just going to let you know real quick. If you're out there thinking, I'm going to come into this industry, hire a white label, go sell a whole bunch of money and never have to do anything. Yeah, that is not how this game is played. Okay, just to let you know, it is not how this game is. And you're going to have a rough ride. It's going to be a very rough ride. So you have to put in the time to learn that skill set. Dude, I don't know how to do design, but I can definitely manipulate Photoshop right now. I mean, because of 15 years of forced, had to.
Yeah, you work it out,
WordShop, I can't write one line of PHP. Can't. To this day, can't. But I can go in there and add a little menu item in WordPress and drag and drop an image or whatever I need to do, basics. Not because I enjoy doing it at all. Exactly opposite if you want to know the truth. But it allows me to do what I do love. Okay, right, and so I always found that to be true. I just always found that to be a good formula. So, I got another question for you. Ready?
Sure.
Okay, so they're going in the direction of peak performance, meaning they got to be structured. You got to make sure they get the structure in there, and through consistency and repetition comes the flow to the freedom. Okay, I don't know if I said that right. I hope I said that right.
Yeah. No, perfect.
Okay, and so that's very insightful. I'm glad you're talking about this because I hear this all the time, and I have to admit, it's kind of a little pet peeve of mine. It's almost like they want something for nothing, and I'm like, man, that's just not how. It's not how this works. You got to put in the time to get the dime. Okay, it's just the way it works. So, now with this one, okay, the next question is where do most agencies go wrong when they're trying to grow or scale their business? I'm really excited to hear your input on this one. So.
Yeah. So from my perspective, I tend to look more at the human behind the business. Of course, you can go wrong with business systems and just not having the right marketing, having your avatar wrong, not connecting to your audience, all that kind of stuff can go wrong. From a human peak performance perspective, you touched on it earlier, and it's this idea that we don't listen to our biology. Right, we don't listen to our own systems, and we don't get out of our own way. So a lot of the time with,
Oh my God! For the record,
as
I'm so guilty of all three. I mean, I'm better, but I'm now pretty good. By losing millions of dollars, I learned over the years. Stop doing that. But all three of those things, you hit the nail. Say those three again. Yeah, I hit the nail on the head. All three of those were my major hurdle. What were those again? Say those again.
I forget what I said now. But yeah, that's that. What did I say?
Not getting out of your own way.
Yeah. So not getting out of your own way, not listening to your body, not listening to your
body,
biology,
and not delegating. Yes.
and not delegating, and not delegating, deferring. But if we look at our biology, as we're creating in whatever we're doing, we are creatives, right? If we're in advertising, marketing, SMMA, whatever you're doing, it's a creative endeavor. So we're always seeking creativity, inspiration, and that's what our clients want as well, right? They want beautiful creative. They want great ideas. And essentially that's what we're selling. We're selling our ideas, our knowledge, our ability to create things out of nothing, to connect far-flung ideas into something new and novel that's going to help them sell a product. But creativity is that thing that we're craving. Creativity works in space, right? It works when there's space and time to think, right? When we've got that cognitive space, when cognitive load's reduced, when we're sitting, when you're having a shower, it's when you're taking a walk. It's generally not when you're just sitting, thinking, doing, hustling, grinding, pounding away every day. That kind of modality is literally and scientifically the complete opposite to what we want to do to let creativity flourish. But particularly a lot of big agencies where you see like the burnout rates are 77, 78%. I mean, significant. That's not a little bit. That's most people. That's 3/4 of your staff are burning out. It's because there's this hustle and grind and this just grind it out, just get it done mentality, and this culture that is the big agency culture, and that filters down to solopreneurs and startups and the smaller agencies. If you're in advertising and marketing, you hustle and you grind, and it's 24/7, 365, working till 4 a.m, getting that thing done. And sometimes that's necessary, right? Sometimes you just got to get shit done and you got to do that. But that as a normal operating rhythm is horrendous.
Dude, it'll kill you. I mean, it'll literally kill you.
It'll
kill you.
literally ruin your health.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not invested. I mean, for real, like literally almost killed my ass. So, but that's so true. So,
but it's also destroying your effectiveness. But it's this weird dichotomy because it feels that felt sense of hustling and grinding and just doing and being busy. It feels like you're being really productive. It feels like you're being really effective. But if you actually look at it, there's a massive drop off in actual performance when you're kind of in this gray zone of just pushing through and just hustling and grinding, not sleeping, not hydrating, not eating well, not exercising, not taking regular breaks to revive. So you're essentially in that state. You're always in fight or flight, right? You're in the sympathetic nervous system. You're in that switched on, looking for danger, looking for fear, looking for the tiger jumping out of the bushes. That is the state that you're in when you're in that hustle, grind, push. If you're always in that stress state, your system just doesn't have time just to relax and move into that parasympathetic system where it's rest and digest and relax and flush out all the cortisol and all the stress hormones. You've got to let that stuff resolve, and that's taking a walk, that's having a quick break, that's going and getting a massage, just doing some breath work, it's doing a quick meditation in between meetings. It's just letting the nervous system calm down, and then you come back and you can ride that next energy wave. So that gray zone of just pushing kind of feels like you're doing really well, but the actual decline in your effectiveness is significant. If instead of that, you can understand that your energy is going to peak and trough during the day, and you can ride those waves where you're riding right to the top of your performance. And as you start to crest that and you start to feel, and that's generally like a 45, 90-minute cycle, which is like the Pomodoro method, right? Sort of these 45-minute work sessions. If you can take a break every 45 minutes, as your energy is declining, take a bit of a break. do a quick meditation, go for a walk, right? And then when you come back, your energy is naturally going to peak again. And because you've kind of flushed yourself out and you've relaxed, you're ready again. Your energy is going to peak again. If you don't ride that wave and you just kind of go through, you never really hit the peak of the performance. So that's really what this stuff is about. It's about listening to your biology and then letting your biology work for you rather than against you. And so many of us out there, particularly in this industry, are working against our biology without really understanding and knowing it.
Yep, I agree. Oh my gosh, drop the mic. I'm talking about it, like, damn, here you go. If you need one, there's one right there. You can just go ahead and drop that mic real quick. Hey, man, that was awesome. That's so true. Another thing from this listening to your biology is phases of life. I know a lot of people don't ever talk about phases of life. But when you're in, you got your what's called your warrior mode, then you got your muse mode, then you got your king mode, you got these different phases of life. And we all go through them, whether you want to or not. It's not up to you. It's a biological thing. Okay. There's a reason after the age of 40 you start to slow down a little bit. It's not that you don't have the drive, it's the fact that you don't have the energy. Your body is not physically not producing the same level of energy. Thank God, by the way. You know what I'm saying? It's good to slow down a little bit whenever you're running that fast, right? But understanding that, so when you're in your 20s and your 30s, that is kind of the warrior time. It's easier to kind of push through those things, but you need to be aware of it. You can't go too far because you will burn out. Your creativity will go through the basement. I always have a saying. I always distill things down to very simple little sayings, like I call them verbal memes. And we had about 25 of them we used around our office. Okay, fresh minds equal fresh ideas. It's not rocket science. Okay, everybody, if you're stressed the hell out, and at my office we won like top company culture in the United States and Entrepreneur Magazine. So we had ping pong tables and cornhole, and are you kidding me? If you're stressed out, go play a game of cornhole, or go play, or go shoot some hoops, or again, there are plenty of options around our office to go relax a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And when you're in your 20s and 30s, understand you're kind of in what's called the warrior mode. You don't know everything. Stop acting like you do. It drives me nuts. I'm like, you're 24 years old. It's not possible for you to know all this stuff. You haven't had the time to learn it. Now, you have drive, unlike any, you're in your prime time. So you should be going to 3 or 4, 10 events a damn month. Why not? You don't need to sleep. You're 23 years old. Shut up. Go out there and do it. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, that makes sense. So understanding the biology behind entrepreneurship. I preach on this like that, but I've never really heard anybody else say anything about it. They just kind of, they gloss over. They say hustle, work through it. But
like, hustle, grind.
Yeah, hustle and grind.
The grindstone.
And I understand hustle and grind. We all got to do it. There's
a season for everything, right? As you're saying, there's a season for that.
There's a season for everything. And so you have to learn and be aware of that. And if you manage that, it can make a huge difference, in your quality of life. And ultimately, that's where I'm coaching right now. My programs are definitely going to help you grow. But most importantly, at the same time we're growing, we're going to improve your quality of life. Because I don't want you working 80 hours a week like I did. I don't want you missing your 4th grade daughter's soccer camps or whatever the hell in my case. Does that make sense? I don't want you missing that stuff. It's too important. You don't ever get that stuff back. I want you to be at that soccer game with your little baby. Okay, watching her kick the ball on the wrong damn goal and screaming, who cares? It's your daughter. You don't care. Like, it's the best. It's my why. It's what I do it for. So, man, this has been an absolutely great episode, Chris. I really, really appreciate you taking the time out. We have a little thing here at the end of all my podcasts. It's called the shameless plug. Okay, so just throw out whatever the hell you want. What's your URL? How can people get in touch with you? Do you want them to get in touch with you? Are you booked up right now? What's up?
Yeah, I'm always keen to talk to more people and say I feel like this stuff is so important and underrepresented, particularly with the agency industry.
Well, I personally think there's a bunch of idiots out there acting like they can do this stuff, but there's not a whole lot of legitimate guys that have actually built it, sold it, exited it. In other words, like, it's not easy. And if somebody's trying to sell you some sizzle, I don't know if you ever heard the old saying, some people sell sizzle, people sell steak. I sell the steak. It's going to take longer. It's going to take a little longer to eat it, but at least it's going to be full. The sizzle, that's exactly what it is. It's all sizzle. You can have shit. Okay, and so stop buying sizzle, buy steak. I'm
Yeah,
staying
yeah.
with you, Chris. You sound like you're steak as well. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
but
we want to play the infinite game, right? We want to get into the infinite game where you can do this thing for as long as you want to do it. You want to build a business for longevity, right? You want legacy.
substance,
You want it to
something of
feed you for a
substance.
lifetime.
Yeah, substance,
Yeah,
something of substance. You can be proud of. You know what I mean? Put your name on
yeah,
it. Tell you, like for example, my daughter. I'm proud to tell her that I built my company, Get You Wired, and I sold it. They're still running it. They're still doing a great job. I'm proud to help other agency owners. If I was
yeah.
some kind of info guy just trying to peddle some stuff like that, I don't think I'd be as proud about
Mm,
that. That makes sense if I just was kind of trying to hack the money out of it. So that's
yeah.
my personal. That's what allows me to put my head down on the pillow at night and sleep
Mm.
comfortably. Right. So
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm all about that. That makes perfect sense to me too, mate. Well, maybe it's a generational thing, right? I think that the expectation has shifted a lot over the 20 years since both of us sort of started agencies and to today. The nothing against the generations coming through. There's just different expectations because everything is immediate, right? Everything
on
is
demand.
instant
Yep.
gratification.
Yep.
So going back to the one skill set that you could learn, probably one of the greatest second ones is to defer gratification, right? If you can push back and defer gratification, that is an amazing skill set. And that can come down, that sort of balances off with distraction, right? If you can lean into boredom, if you can spend a weekend without stimulation, that's an amazing skill set to have. That's going to give you that capacity to deal with all of the stuff, all of the uncertainty and volatility that life and business and running a creative business is going to throw at you. So yeah, the more you can defer gratification and not
That
have that, not move away from the sizzle, right, and get used to eating the steak bite by bite by bite by bite.
bite by bite,
So,
but you're not going to you're not going to eat the whole steak in one bite. You're going to eat it one bite at a time. You know, anyway, if you overcook it, it's going to be your problem. You got to do it anyway. There's a reason they call it sizzle on steak. There's a whole methodology behind it. Boy, I tell you, man, you hit the nail on the head right there. Is deferring gratification. I am 100% going to steal that. So whenever you hear me say that in a podcast, come down, I stole that from you. Go ahead and sue me, I guess. But right.
it's out in the world, mate. Nothing's new these days, right?
See, I will tell you right now. I mean, I would take some distributions in the first 5 years, just enough to keep me and my family going. Man, I'm gonna tell you right now, I almost lost the house a couple of times, going through that, and this is a common story. When I'm not ashamed of it, I'm not bashful about it. I'm proud of it. That's like my stripes, my tiger stripes, or that's kind of your badge. You know what I mean? So
yeah, exactly.
It dumped out me whenever they're, oh no, I got to make $6,000 a month, no matter what, before anybody else gets paid. And I'm like, dude, that's contractor mentality, not an owner's mentality. That's two different mentalities. We're talking about two different balls. And if you have that mentality, more power to you. But understand that if you are instant gratification, taking all the profit now kind of thing, right? Okay, then you are going to pay for that long term. If you're investing it back into like a self-funded organization, that's what mine was. We never carried any more than 1% to 2% debt. And I was a multi. I mean, for me to say that, that's an accomplishment. If you built an agency, that is very fucking hard to do. I mean, that is, man, I'm gonna tell you, that is unbelievably difficult to do. Okay, whenever your payroll was multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, it's just like, it's tough not to have that line of credit and things like that. It's just tough. Eventually, towards the end, I had to go get an Amex line of credit based on our volume. So we're just in case we had that overflow, but we only pulled out of that when we needed to. We didn't actually have the credit. It was there if we needed it, kind of thing, right? And a couple of times we got up around 7%, and I was like, get that shit back down to 2. I'm like, better get it back down, get it back. Anyway, point being is that by me deferring the gratification, it got to the point to where, I eventually retired from that agency and sold it and cashed out, and it paid off so much more and so much more rewarding down the road than it did to just pull out profit instantly. Granted, it does make life a lot more difficult when you're just getting started. But your employees will trust you more. They'll see you're really sacrificing. There's something to be said for whenever the entrepreneurs die on that hill. Okay, the employees I had followed me over that cliff because they saw me dying on that hill every single day for them as well. So if you think that you're going to sit there and do, and I don't want to discredit the book Profit First. I like the book. I think it's a good idea. It really is. Okay, I think you can go too far with it though. Okay, but I think that whenever your employees see that and you're dedicated, you're driven, Yeah, man, that instills confidence. That instills like, man, if this guy's in it, I'm in it to win it. I'm in it to win it too. So, but I still
Yeah.
haven't heard your shameless plug. I don't know if it's because I interrupted
Yeah,
you.
yeah, we just keep talking for the next 4 hours. People can find I'm pretty much the Chris McLean on most social, apart from Instagram where I'm the dot Chris.McLean, because there's apparently some other the Chris McLean out there on Instagram. If I ever find it, might come down to a fight for the handle. And the website is thechrismclean.com. You can find some free training there, which will sort of take you through my basic fundamental sort of thinking in the space, how to get that distraction managed, the daily rituals that agency owners need to implement to kind of start to deal with this stuff, elevate, get that emergent property of peak performance, of flow states, of feeling great, performing better, and jacking up. I mean, the gains in productivity and performance are not 1%, 2%, 3%. You're looking at 500%, 800%, and significant 5x, 8x, 10x gains in productivity. So literally, you sort of say, this is the example, right? When you're hitting peak performance, you're dropping into flow, you're getting your most important work done in a heightened state. You can go to work Monday and take the rest of the week off and be at the same level of productivity and performance as your steady state peers. So you can imagine doing that 5 days a week, month after month after month. It's an exponential, right, competitive advantage. So that's the kind of stuff we're talking about when you get this stuff dialed in.
Yeah, man, that's cool. That's outstanding. I'm so glad I met you, man. So glad you came on. So
Pleasure, man.
all right, Goff, Agency Success GPS podcast. I really appreciate everybody tuning in. Don't forget to hit subscribe on whatever platform, wherever you're at on this thing, where Apple, wherever you are. Okay. Also, hop over to YouTube like that. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. We're always putting out new videos over there. So, Chris, thank you again, and everyone have a wonderful day. Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a blessed day and got a few action items you can use from this episode. If you have not already subscribed to my podcast, you can do that now on whatever platform you are on. Simply click the subscribe button to get an update every time we release a new episode. Or you can join us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and as always, the best place to learn more about me is on my website, www.marketingagencycoach.com.